2, 1.
The next thing I wanted to do with the Bullitt was mask off the lower valence with painter's tape and plasti dip the lower part of the bumper black. This looks really good on this generation Mustang, and I know that Bullitt Mustangs don't look good with any kind of striping on them. They're not supposed to have anything like that, but in this case I thought it was something very subtle, especially with a dark blue car. Black or dark blue doesn't really show up. And so you can see here it looks good even with the sun on it. There's a little bit of shine to it. And it was just something cool that I did that most people wouldn't even know it's there. Now, being that I was daily driving the car, I wanted to make sure that the air conditioning was working right. It actually did work, but the AC clutch was starting to make some noise. And I had replaced the AC clutch on one of my other Mustangs before. I had done it before, but there was a guy who had a little shop that he was starting up here in town, and he was an older gentleman. He was a master tech mechanic, and he was asking people to bring cars to him and get his name out there. So I decided that I might as well go ahead and let him do it. I was driving the car to Vegas and back. It was about 2 hours each way. And I was doing a lot of racing with the car, and I didn't want the AC clutch to freeze up or the compressor to have a problem like that while I'm traveling and racing. So I thought it'd be in my best interest to go ahead and have that clutch replaced. So I took the car up to him, and he looked it over and he said, you know, it really should have new everything. A new condenser, new compressor, new everything. And so I didn't really want to do it, but you know, I have kids and stuff, and having AC is really important. I mean, most of the time, to be honest, I don't use the air conditioning on my car, even though it's over 100 degrees here in the summers. But anyway, I decided to go ahead and do the right thing and get everything replaced. And so he replaced the whole system. It cost me like $600, and about a week later, it was just blowing hot. And so I took the car back to him. He looked it over, he put dye in it. He couldn't really find anything wrong with it, but he redid it all. He bought a new compressor and returned the old one, and he charged me another 100 or two in labor. And I didn't really expect him to do that. I thought he would just fix it right and do the right thing. Well, anyway, again, a week or two later, it was blowing hot again. And so I said, look, this just isn't right. And he said, okay, well, you can bring it back to me again, but if I take it apart and I find that one little rock has gotten into the condenser or anything, and that it's leaking out for any other reason, you're going to pay me again for the whole job. And so at that point I said no. I said I'll put a AC delete pulley on that and rip the whole AC out at this point, if that's the way you're going to go about it. I was pretty upset about it. So I just let the car be the way it was, and to this day it has all those new components in there, but the AC wasn't working. So I really enjoyed driving the car around, take it to McDonald's, go out with the kids. Going to AutoZone was always fun, just looking through the things I need. But that driver's seat was really getting to me. And I had showed you that I duct taped it before in the previous video because the ex-wife of the previous owner had slashed it with a knife. So I found these nice black leather seats in Vegas in a V6 Mustang, and I thought they'd probably be a little bit better, but I wanted to keep most of the seat original. So what I ended up doing was just taking the lower section of the seat off and replacing it. I kept the back of the seat and the Bullitt headrest and everything all intact, and I drove it around like that for a little while, and it was okay. It was a little bit less comfortable, but at least it wasn't so shredded and torn up. So you can see it looked pretty good in there. It was nice. It wasn't as bad as it was before. Now, something cool was my cousin really loved the Bullitt, and he was just coming down here and living with my brother and starting his life over again. He was 18 years old, and he found a black Bullitt that he really wanted. He would ride in mine, and he wanted a Bullitt so bad, and so he got a black Bullitt. It was number 140. It had 140,000 miles on it too, and it was a nice car. And in some ways it was actually nicer than mine. The paint was actually really nice. The seats were definitely better, and he enjoyed driving it. This is pictures of it at work. You can see him parked next to me there at work if you look out the window. And we would drive these cars all over the place. We got him a job where we worked, and that's why we worked together. He used to ride with me to work and want a Bullitt, and then he finally ended up getting this one. And he had to go to California and meet the guy halfway in Vegas, actually, is what ended up happening. But this car has its own story. I've already done a story about the car, and you can watch that later. I'll put a link in the video description. But it was just a good time to be Bullitt buddies. That's what we called each other, Bullitt buddies. And we loved driving around this new reservoir that the city had made. It's called Sand Hollow Reservoir. Beautiful view, one of our favorite places to drive. And so we would go on these long drives out there, and we'd, get the cars ready. We'd cool them down when we were done. But this is one of our little back road cruises, and I actually have just a tiny short video of the cars out here that I'll post right here. But you can see how beautiful and new everything is out here. The view is spectacular. I actually proposed to my wife out there because it's so beautiful. So it was just so fun to be out there. So here's a little video of my Bullitt just doing a drive-by out there. So as you can see, we're just out there having fun, enjoying the cars, how they sound. They don't have to be rocket ships to go out and enjoy. Just having a car like this to enjoy. And for him, getting this Bullitt was a dream of his, and being able to drive them together was fun. I remember specifically this night we were out getting an IC, stopped at a gas station, and just cruising around was always fun. So it was just a fun time with the Bullitt. It was fun to have another one in the pack, especially since these cars were so rare, and I really hadn't seen very many of the Bullitts anyway. So there's a black Bullitt and a blue Bullitt. This is us at McDonald's. And this is us at the racetrack. I had mentioned before I had been taking the car to the racetrack a lot. I really enjoyed that. I felt like I could beat on this car and have fun with it, and it drove down to the track and back, no problems every time. It was very reliable. Here's the Bullitt in the staging lanes next to my cousin's Bullitt, just having a ton of fun. And something cool about these Bullitts was mine had the gears and headers, and I was getting into the high 13s with the car. Now that might not sound very fast, but something that you need to know is the Las Vegas track, the prep isn't always perfect, and the higher elevation is said to make the track about 1 second slower than sea level. So the cars that are running 13s would be more like in the 12s. Mine's running high 13s, so it could have been a high 12-second car at this time. But as far as the other Mustangs were concerned, these were my friends' New Edge Mustangs, and I had met a lot of these guys on the forums. And they would go to race, and they had their cars modified too. Some of them were close to stock, but the thing that was cool about me getting into the high 13s was they couldn't get their cars to do it. They were all 14, 14.1. When my car was stock, I was running 14.2 with it. And obviously that was on street tires. That was the first time I went. I'd be spinning down the track. But some of these cars, they did everything they could to make them fast. They had gears. One of them did weight reduction like crazy, and he still couldn't crack into the 13s. And at the Vegas track, the 13s were important because if you ran a 13.99 or faster, you had to wear a helmet. And they wrote an H on your windshield for helmet. So that H was kind of like a trophy. And so if you pulled up in the lineup with your friends after running a pass and you had that H written on there, everyone knew that you had gotten into the 13s. And so for a New Edge Mustang, 2 valves like these, that was pretty cool. So my Bullitt had the H on the windshield a lot. Now there were times where I'd run a 14.1 or 2, spinning a little bit too much or whatever, but I did run consistent 13.9s with the car, and I was really excited about it. I wanted to get as fast as I could, but the best I could do was a 2.0 60 foot. As you can see here in the time slip, my Bullitt is on the right. I wrote Bullitt up there at the top, and I ran a 13.943 at 98 miles an hour, and that was just enough to get right into the 13s. I was very proud of that, and I had a lot of time slips that had the 13s on them. And if you look at this picture, you'll notice that the rear wheels are from my 97 Mustang GT. They are actually the exact wheels that are on my 97 GT now. They belong to my brother, and then he sold them to the person who bought the 97 GT. And anyway, it's kind of a long story, but at one time I had those wheels, and I had a set of drag radials. They were Nitto NT 555Rs that were given to me from a friend who had a Trans Am, and they were 17-inch wheels. They're 275 40s, and my friend had them. They were worn out, they were bald, and he said, you can have these. So I mounted them on there, and they hooked pretty good. Definitely better than the street tires did. But it just seemed like I couldn't cut underneath a 2.0 60-foot. And you can see in this picture, another time I went down, I had my friend's brand new Nitto NT05Rs on the car. I thought maybe that would make a difference, but I ran the exact same 60 foots, 2.0, 2.1, no matter what it was, no matter how I launched, it just wasn't doing any better. I even tried launching at 4,000 RPM and just really moving out with the car, and it didn't make any difference. So here's the video of me launching at 4,000 RPM against a 350Z. I ran a low 14, but still I was able to beat him. 14.13. I just really loved racing, and this next race was one of my favorites. I was lined up against this GTO, and I looked over and I was like, man, that's a 6-liter GTO. He's gonna whoop on me. But then I looked back, I was like, you know, he doesn't have drag radials on. There's a chance that I'll get out ahead of him. And so this was one of my favorite races. Nice. Can go against the GTO. 1396. So you can hear that my brother was excited to see the 1396 because he knew that was the best the Bullitt could get out of it at that track, and everybody knew that was a good time. So I was able to run my best. That was one of my best passes in the Bullitt, naturally aspirated gears and headers. And the next one I ran, I also got a 13.9, and I was glad because I was right on point because I was up against a new BMW. And I had to hit every shift right on, and I sure did. It was an awesome run. So here you can see my cousin's Bullitt and my Bullitt in the staging lanes together. We were having so much fun. I tell people all the time, I wasn't chasing a 10-second slip. I was going for myself. I was going for fun. I was trying to see what I could do with what I had. My cousin was the same. We were just having a blast. And this was a great time for him to get into the cars and stay out of trouble and other things that were going on in his life. And he always talks about that with me, how this was something that was good we could focus on. And so our Bullitts were up next. He ran really good with that car. It was all stock. We called it a factory freak because he was able to get times out of it better than my friends with their modified Mustang New Edge GTs. And so he'd do like 14.1s, sometimes 14.2, all stock, and I was 13.9 with gears and headers and a tune. And also I had drag radials. He was on street tires. So watch this next race. You'll see that we both launch real good. I get out ahead of him because I have the radials on and everything, but he doesn't lose much ground. It was a great race.
Justin 13.96, Zach 14.4.
So like I said, I had a whole center console full of 13.9 time slips. That was so cool. I was very consistent, as you could see in these videos. And it was awesome. Like I said, I got to wear a helmet. And wearing a helmet was something that everybody wishes they could get to. They brought one with them, but they a lot of times didn't get to use it. But it was so fun to have these New Edge Mustang friends, these GT friends. Look at the staging lanes, all of us together. It was so much fun, and I think those days are getting lower. I know the New Edge Mustang GTs will be out there, and there will be plenty of people who will still be racing them and getting them, especially because they're cheap. But to me, these cars were really loved at that time. They were what was cool. The Coyotes were really new, if that, and so people weren't really into those yet. So it was a really special time for the New Edge Mustang. So we even put the drag radials on my cousin's Bullitt. He wasn't able to get into the 13s. He just couldn't launch right or whatever. But then we'd all meet up at the gas station afterwards. It was really fun just to be there with all the New Edge Mustangs and the SN95s. I mean, any Mustang group was fun to hang out with. And so we would drive home at night. We would actually do this on a very tight schedule. My cousin and I would work at 3 in the morning, and we would work an 8-hour shift or more. We'd go home, get the cars ready, then we'd drive down to Vegas 2 hours, go through tech, race the cars, come home. By the time we were done, it was like 4 in the morning. So it was a really crazy time, but it was a lot of fun. And this is us stopping in a little town to get McDonald's on the way home. And we just had so much fun with these cars together. So I wanted to include a lot of my cousin's Bullitt in this because it does make a big difference. We were Bullitt buddies for life. You know, you'll see more of that as the series goes on. But here's our 2 Bullitts out on the town having fun. It was something we did all the time. It was so much fun. So that does it for this part. Stay tuned for the next part of this story. There's so much more to come. There is a lot that is going to go on with this car that is really crazy.